Jones Bikes has two primary models, the LWB and the SWB. Over the past year, I've had the chance to extensively ride and review both of their complete versions, which come pretty much ready to ride. Despite having the same general fitment, there are some key differences between the bikes that give them their own distinct personalities. In this video, I'm going to go over the differences and discuss the strengths and weaknesses of each model so you can pick which one is right for you. So let's get into it. While I'll be talking about the complete versions of each bike, the SWB and LWB are really more like names for different geometries and designs. What I mean by that is that both of these bikes are available in a few different flavors: diamond or space frame, unicrown or truss fork, steel or titanium, complete or frame set. The complete is the most basic of all of these, with a steel diamond frame and a unicrown fork. If you go with the frame set, you get some additional benefits, including a heat-treated, even more butted frame with an eccentric bottom bracket. I've never ridden a space frame, so I can't speak much to it, but I can say if you're concerned about standover, then it might be a good choice. The reason I bring all of this up is because although each combination might add a little compliance here or a stiffness there, my comparison will mostly be focused on the core of the bike, like the geometry, ride feel, and tire choices. Geometry is one area where these bikes are most obviously different. The SWB has a 69-degree head tube with a 72-degree effective seat tube angle, while the LWB is slacker in both aspects, coming in at 67.5 and 71 degrees respectively. The chainstays on the LWB are also much longer at 483 millimeters versus the SWB's more traditional 449. These numbers combine to give a total wheelbase of 1092 on the SWB with a significantly longer 1178 on the LWB. That's 86 millimeters or nearly 3.5 inches longer. As I've mentioned before, Jones doesn't publish too many official geometry numbers, but having ridden both in a size medium, the reach, stack, and effective top tube feel very similar. The SWB, however, does feel a little shorter when in the saddle, so if you're on the taller end of the size range, you may want to actually size up. Weight-wise, the SWB is a little lighter, with the complete bike coming in at 33.7 pounds with knobby tires and hydraulic brakes, which is a little less than a pound under the LWB's 34.6. The final thing to mention is tire sizing. The SWB is focused on 29er and 27.5 plus tires, while the LWB is mostly a 29 plus bike, although it can run as low as a 29 by 2.3 if you really wanted to. Both bikes can also fit a fat tire up front, something that's extra easy since the forks are a traditional fat bike axle spacing, and I tested both with up to a 27.5 by 4 fat tire just for fun. That's all of the nitty-gritty numbers I think are important to go over, and now I want to jump into more of how this all translates to the real world. To get straight to the point on how these ride, the LWB feels more mountain bikey, while the SWB can feel like a gravel bike or ATB, or even an XC mountain bike, depending on what wheels and tires it's running. That's not to say that the LWB isn't adaptable or versatile, it's just that compared to the SWB, it doesn't feel as light or fast on flatter terrain or dirt and paved roads, and you don't have as many tire choices. The SWB surprised me in that type of riding. It was just super nimble, quick to accelerate, and felt more like I was riding a flat bar gravel bike than a plus-tired rigid mountain bike. I still enjoy the LWB with some fast rolling tires like the T-Fatties, but where it really feels at home is on trails and rough roads. The long chainstays and slacker head tube make this bike an incredibly confident and stable descender and climber, especially when paired with a big old Duro crux for extra traction and float. As I mentioned in the SWB review, that bike did benefit from the 27.5 version of the crux, but I still think the LWB felt more confident on technical obstacles either way. The SWB is just hindered a bit by that steep front end and shorter wheelbase, and it just never felt as planted and stable as the LWB. To be honest though, that might be a positive thing, especially if you're someone who has a really playful riding style and wants to move the bike around a ton and manual and things like that. I'm more of a wheels on the ground, pick my line, and smash my way through type of rider, so the LWB clicked with me more here. One interesting thing to note is that although these bikes are usually running vastly different tire sizes, the trail measurement is actually almost the same thanks to different forks. The LWB's fork is 451 millimeters tall and has a whopping 76 millimeters of offset, which effectively reduces the trail to the mid-80s for a lighter and quicker steering feel than you'd get with such a tall tire and slackish head tube. Most bikes are actually going shorter on their offset to both increase trail and make the tire a little easier to weight, but with a short reach and slack by modern standards head tube, weighting the front end isn't a problem, and the bike benefits from keeping that front tire a little farther out. The SWB has a much steeper head tube and uses shorter tires, so it only has 55 millimeters of offset on its fork, which comes in slightly shorter at 441 millimeters. So if the trail is the same, why do they steer so differently? While I can't say definitively, I'd guess it mostly comes down to the larger and heavier tires and wheels, as well as the longer wheelbase of the LWB, creating a more stable steering feel. When it comes to the sweet spots of these bikes, the situations and riding styles that they're best suited for, I'll admit there's a little bit of overlap. That overlap, however, is again going to be mostly determined by what tires you're running. Starting off with the SWB, this bike and its geometry has a sweet spot on dirt roads, rough double track, and flowy mountain bike trails. The steeper head tube, shorter wheelbase, and lighter feel to the bike makes it well suited as a modern all-terrain bike, on and off-road touring bike, or even a classic cross-country mountain bike. If you want to be on the faster, tamer end of the spectrum, the 2.8-inch speedsters work really well and handle rocky roads just fine. If I wanted this as more of a playful mountain bike, I'd probably go with a 3-inch mountain bike tire or a 2.629er and hit more tight and twisty single-track trails. The SWB is overall more adaptable to different scenarios than the LWB, thanks to that ability to run different wheel and tire sizes. So where does that put the LWB's sweet spot? Blue and black diamond trails, rough double track, and that rocky old mining road to nowhere. It's a bike for hitting your local trails, going on long bikepacking trips, or having an all-day adventure on alpine single track. It's the most planted feeling bike I've ever ridden, especially when climbing punchy hills or descending steep obstacles like rock slabs. The front end doesn't lift, the steering doesn't wander, and the rear end doesn't slip. It just tractors its way up as long as you keep supplying the power. And once you adapt your riding to suit a rigid bike, you'll be amazed at how rough and technical of a trail it can handle. The Butte 50 is a mountain bike race that I've done a few times now. While it's usually on mostly buff single-track trails, this year it had to be diverted due to wildfires and was a much sandier and more technical course. Most riders were on full suspension XC and trail bikes or hardtails, but I decided to use the LWB last minute. I have zero regrets from that decision, as it handled every obstacle just fine and was super comfortable over the 50 miles and 7,500 feet of climbing. Could I have used the SWB? Probably, but I think I would have been less confident and noticeably slower in all of the technical sections. Where the SWB would have been my preference over the LWB though, was for the 90-mile Rat Pod gravel route I did in June. With a 60-40 split between dirt roads and pavement, the SWB would have been a comfortable yet still quick option. Now, I've never ridden the LWB with the matching 2.8-inch speedsters, so maybe that would totally change my opinion on its range of sweetness, but I don't know. The geometry just leans toward more rowdy riding. I will say, however, I've still really enjoyed the LWB on its fair share of mixed terrain, with long dirt roads and double track connectors between other trails. To sum everything up, both of these bikes are super comfortable and way more capable than you'd think at first glance. Which one you pick should come down to what riding you have in mind for it. If you're wanting something you can use to tackle miles of gravel roads one day, but still hit some easy to intermediate single track the next, the SWB would be my choice. If blue and black single track, more technical, aggressive riding, and lots of dirt roads in between is a big chunk of your weekly mileage, I'd pick the LWB hands down. I have zero experience on the loaded up front, but my inclination is that the SWB is better suited for traditional touring with dirt and paved roads, while the LWB would be awesome for full-on bike packing. The reality is, both of these bikes are great. As for me, I'm sticking with the LWB because I'm a huge fan of 29 Plus, and I want something for riding torn up, rocky dirt bike trails and a lot of single track. If I didn't have something like my Cutthroat though, the SWB would definitely be in my bike stable. If you enjoyed this video and want to know more about either of these bikes, go check out my first look and review videos, which are linked down below. If you want to support me, be sure to like and share and subscribe. And if this video helps you out in any meaningful way, let Jones know I sent you and consider leaving a super thanks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.